Hello. Salut. It's an honor to be with you this evening. C'est un honneur d'être avec vous ce soir. It might strike you as odd that at a TED event here in France, one of the speakers is from the United States. I was going to give my talk en français, but I'm sure that your English is better. Plus, I know how much you love it when we come here and speak to you in English. A few months ago, I lost my job in a mass layoff. My colleagues and I worked in the White House for Barack Obama, on the team using social media and the internet to connect with people in America and around the world. Today, I want to share some of the lessons we learned about how governments can use social media and the internet to have real, substantive conversations with the people that they serve, to use technology to help rebuild trust and improve the dynamism of our democracy. Wait a second. You might be asking yourself, what about the most recent election in the United States, or France, or England, or Holland makes this guy think that democracy and the internet mix well together? This is a fair question. In recent experience, the internet has done more to amplify our prejudices and make our system vulnerable to manipulation than it has to bring us together. As Ev Williams, one of the founders of Twitter and Medium and Blogger, noted recently, the internet is broken. So the answer can't be that we should simply place our trust in social media and expect that with time, things will get better. Platforms have a lot of work to do to dial down the intensity and the anger and the partisanship and the trolling. And until that happens, there's no reason for us to expect that Snapchat will give us a better president than Twitter did. But any answer to this question must begin by admitting that for all their drawbacks, online platforms are the most powerful tools for mass communications and mass organizing that human beings have ever built. And we're still in the early years. So we have to give serious consideration, all of us together, to how we can harness technology to create more productive opportunities for feedback and participation in our civic life. Our team at the White House was called the Office of Digital Strategy. The work of that office evolved along with the consumer web. In 2009, there was a MySpace page, and by 2016, we were posting to Instagram stories. And along the way, there were many videos and tweets and GIFs and every other unit of social media that you can imagine. Digital strategy was brand new. And everything that we did in the office, we were doing for the first time, sort of like a startup. But like other startups, we had a mission statement, except ours was given to us by President Barack Obama. Connect people with purpose. Use the internet and social media to help people across America feel like they were reflected in their government, see themselves reflected in their government, to feel that they were being heard and to know that they were included in the process. Few things that we did in the Office of Digital Strategy live up to this mission better than We the People, an online petitions platform. And this is where I want to focus my attention today. The First Amendment to the US Constitution enshrines the right to petition alongside the rights of speech, assembly, and religion. It has roots in the Magna Carta. And yet, when I say the word petition, most people think a clipboard and a pen and it's being passed around for your signature. Let's take a broader view. I want you to think of it as the right of real people to take part in their government. The thing is, the First Amendment doesn't say a lot about how you're supposed to exercise this right. Who do you give a petition to? How do they respond? Built in 2011, We the People was an effort to answer some of these questions. It wasn't perfect, and with time it got better. By the time that we left the White House, any petition that received 100,000 signatures in 30 days got a response within 2 months. And as it turns out, Many people like to exercise this right to petition by asking us to do things we didn't always want to talk about, like pardon Edward Snowden, or prohibit laws for mandatory vaccines, or support Kurdish independence. There is not a single time when I was at the White House that I remember a petition saying, "You guys are awesome, keep it up." But after all, that's the point. Petitions are a way for people to interrupt when they don't feel like they're being heard. Many times, our answer was no. Sometimes yes, and sometimes, well, that's an interesting idea, but we're not going to deport Justin Bieber. But here's a point that I really want to hammer home. Serious petitions received serious consideration, even when the answer was no. We wanted people's experience to be validated by the process. And you can see this reflected when petitions reached the highest levels of the White House, and they caused serious debates across the US government and across experts throughout the country. A petition was what helped to hold Barack Obama to his word on net neutrality. It was a petition that helped to lead to a law on cell phone unlocking. And it affected many, many other White House initiatives over the years. So what are the lessons that we should take away from this experience about civic technology? I want to propose 3. The first one is, when technology doesn't work, don't assume user error. Some of our most popular petitions asked us to do things that were a little silly, like build a Death Star, or replace the national anthem with a theme song from My Little Pony. Friendship is magic. Friendship is magic. Some people, some observers in the media in particular, like to use these examples to suggest that the petitions platform reflected some of the fundamental drawbacks of democracy, namely the potential for user error. Petitions were just a high-tech way to troll the White House. At best, it was an avenue for slacktivism. But if there was a flaw in the platform, it was a flaw in the product design. In 2015, when we began a site redesign, we went into it with the assumption that success meant more users, more petitions, and more signatures. These are, after all, the traditional markers of success for consumer technology. Fortunately, we had the wisdom to ask for input from the public. And one product designer gave us a very simple but intuitive piece of feedback. He said, "You guys are the government. You don't sell ads, you serve people. The question should be, how do we attract more daily active users? The question is, how do we generate better petitions, ones that lead to action and conversation?" A petition that receives 1 million signatures on an issue that's all over the news carries symbolic value, but it doesn't tell us very much that we don't already know. The most powerful petitions are the ones that shed light on an issue that has been overlooked or that disproportionately affects disadvantaged communities. A Pew Foundation report on We the People found that 48% of the petitions on the site were tagged by users as pertaining to civil rights or human rights. If 100,000 people think that their civil rights are at risk, that's something the government should absolutely look into. Here's an example of a petition that I have in mind. It asked the President of the United States to intervene on something called the Medicare Local Coverage Determination for lower limb prostheses. Not exactly a topic for the evening news, but for people in the lower limb community, it could have significant ramifications. Thanks to the efforts of people in that community, groups and individuals, this petition garnered 110,000 signatures. It was catapulted to the attention of the White House, and ultimately it helped to lead to a decision to stall putting the rule into effect. And this had significant implications for people in the limb loss community. Lesson 2, we have to build in accountability. The biggest mistake with We the People 1.0 is we didn't give ourselves a deadline. And as a result, some of the hardest petitions piled up. Not because we didn't care, but because usually there was a debate internally about how we should respond. And eventually, we made a change, and we made a promise to respond within 60 days to any petition that crossed the threshold. This was a critical decision. At one point in 2013, the average wait time for a response was 271 days. By 2016, it had dropped to just 34. To get a sense for how this impacts petitions in real life, I want to point to the example of the Save Crypto petition, asking President Obama to take a firm stance in favor of strong cryptography without backdoors. This is an issue that was very hotly debated within the technology and national security communities. And yet, some of the most important people across the United States government were convened for meetings to get a response in time to meet the deadline. This is a sort of petition that previously might have easily been delayed because it was so hard to address. And while the text of the responses may not have always corresponded to the intensity of the discussion behind closed doors, the fact is the debate was very heated, and the response was given. And this is a good example of how petitions can lead to very valuable conversations, and individuals, through their petition, can help set the agenda at the highest levels of the federal government on such a critical issue as national security, on such a critical issue for national security and technology. Lesson 3, make it a conversation. In 6 years, the White House issued 268 responses. Many times, as I noted before, the answer was no or not yet. But that shouldn't be where the conversation ends. When somebody signs a petition asking the White House to require police departments across the entire country to wear body cameras, one of the things that they're telling you is that they care deeply about civil rights, criminal justice, and police violence. So we didn't want to spam people, but we did look for opportunities to extend the conversation. Even when we didn't tell people what they wanted to hear, we wanted their experience to feel validated by the process. And to wit, the average open rate on a response from us was 30 to 40% on those emails, which anyone with any experience in email marketing will tell you is very high. And this reflected high levels of engagement across the entire platform. It wasn't unusual in a given week for We the People to have many times the number of visitors as whitehouse.gov. And in 6 years, there were 480,000 petitions, 29 million users, and more than 40 million signatures. But, like I said before, it wasn't about the numbers. Where it counted, creating opportunities for people to engage productively with their government, to provide feedback, we were just beginning to scratch the surface. One of the consequences of the current chaos in American politics is that we're deprived of the opportunity to have a discussion about what happens next at the White House about civic technology. The irony of this president is that for someone who inspires so much participation, he is totally unresponsive to it. To give but one example, a petition asking him to release his taxes drew over 1 million signatures, and yet the White House has made it abundantly clear that no response is forthcoming. And this is a shame. It runs counter to one of the great traditions in American politics, the idea that we are in an ongoing conversation with our leaders. This theme was picked up by some of our most revered presidents, from Thomas Jefferson to Abraham Lincoln, Teddy Roosevelt to Barack Obama. It even extends to the French. I'm going to pander, excuse me, but since we're in France talking about American democracy, it's my responsibility to invoke Alexis de Tocqueville. When he was just 25 in 1831, he voyaged to America to see our representative democracy up close. And one of the things that surprised him is how easily he walked into the White House. Again, he was 25, ostensibly writing a book about the American penal system, and he was granted an opportunity of 30 minutes to speak with President Andrew Jackson. Meanwhile, in France, they were contemplating a return to the monarchy. This anecdote is emblematic of the idea that in America, the president answers to the people, not just in the ballot box, but at town halls, by mail, and over the phone. Americans delight in the thought that we have the ear of our leaders. This thought is codified in the First Amendment. in the powers to assemble, to petition, and to speak your mind. As millions of Americans have reaffirmed over the past several months, the right to go into the streets, to petition, to call your representatives, to attend town halls, this is an essential part of a healthy, functioning democracy. And yet it still leaves something to be desired. People go into the streets when they're angry, and if any of you have experience with customer service, you know that when people are angry is not the best time to solicit their constructive feedback. Technology offers an interesting solution. In principle, technology makes it possible for this feedback to be contributed more sustainably and consistently. It can also empower people who are socially, geographically, or culturally remote from power to provide it. And our task now is to figure out how to build it. Why now? Because representative democracy is under stress. The system, which was able to absorb massive shocks in the 18th, 19th, and 20th centuries, asks us to repose trust in representatives who are more knowledgeable and experienced to solve big problems at scale. This doesn't work if we lose faith that this arrangement will reward us with greater opportunity and liberty. And yet, as research shows that this is precisely what's taking place among young people, not just in the United States, but in liberal democracies across the world. Likewise, frustrated citizens in industrial towns from Pennsylvania to the Pas-de-Calais feel left out, and they're signaling an openness to something else. Yascha Mounk, a political scientist at Harvard, believes that the warning signs of democracy are flashing red. There are some efforts now to address this, including in the technology community, where there's a tendency to imagine radical solutions that would supplant our current system, to make our representative democracy a little bit more direct. We should be very skeptical. Brain power should be devoted to strengthening our current system, not displacing it. Not just when it comes to basic services and transparency, but communication and engagement. I don't suggest that apps or petitions will be the things that solve our democratic issues. But certainly, we can learn from our experiences to make our system stronger. The 3 lessons that I want to reinforce are focus on product design, build in accountability, and make it a conversation. A United Nations report on e-participation, a ranking of countries across the world and how they fare in these various dimensions, has the United States and France tied for 12th place. None other than the United Kingdom, a country with a monarch, is in first. By contrast, and in the UK, if you get 100,000 signatures in their petition system, Parliament will debate your proposal live. By contrast, France has no petitions platform of its own. But you've just elected the youngest president in the history of the Republic, someone with a very ambitious technology platform. What better time for you, citizens of France, to ask for a bigger seat at the table? So, to end my presentation on a note of civic participation, I want to encourage you to visit nouslepeuple.xyz. Allez-y, vous pouvez accéder, l'URL est actif, vous pouvez signer, and I encourage you to add your name to a petition asking your new leadership to build a platform for you. Merci.